Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my April wrap up and then we get to pick my May TBR. I'm very excited and I can't wait to talk about all the books I read this month because I had an amazing month. Let's get started. I actually got to 10 books this month, which is unheard of from me. I typically only read 6 or 7 books a month, which is beyond great. Like, that's great for me and that's always my goal, to at least get 6 books. So to get 10 this month was absolutely phenomenal. The first book I'll be talking about is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is a cozy fantasy, and I ended up rating this a 4-star. It was a really nice change to read a fantasy book that wasn't so high stakes and a lot going on all at once. It was quite slow paced, which I think a lot of people disliked about it, but I found that kind of endearing actually. But this follows Emily Wilde, who is a genius scholar, but she's terrible with people. She's like quite awkward and she doesn't really know how to talk to people. And she's writing the world's first ever encyclopedia of fairy lore. And she's like trying to discover all these different kind of creatures to write about and just learn deeply about fairy lore and just that kind of realm in general. I'm not gonna lie, I cannot pronounce this village. Hrafnsvik. So that's the village she's like looking into fairy lore in. But when her rival Wendell Bamblebee shows up, he's like, their banter's kind of insane, to be honest. It's quite cute because they're clearly infatuated with one another, but she's really standoffish and she's kind of like tough within herself and kind of abrupt with what she says, and she's very standoffish and she doesn't want to let him in, and he's like kind of stirring the pot a little bit and he's like teasing her, and it's just that very kind of like primary school, early high school kind of relationship, I would explain it as. But she's like discovering secrets of these things called the hidden ones, and which are the most elusive fairies, and yeah, she's just discovering all this to write an encyclopedia of fairies. Along with that, creating friendships with people she didn't expect and forming a deeper relationship with Wendell. That's what the Encyclopedia of Fairies is about, and I can't wait to read the other 2 books in this series. The next book I read in my 24-hour readathon, which if you watch that video, you'll know what I'm talking about. That is Beside Myself by Anne Morgan, and I rated this a 3-star. I would classify this as a thriller. I think it is classified as a literary thriller, which I didn't even know that was a genre. Like, I didn't know that was a thing people classify things as, but nonetheless. I went into this kind of unsure of how I'd feel because a lot of the time when I get books from op shops, you know, it's kind of like you're diving into the unknown, because if you haven't heard of it, obviously you're going to be unsure of a book, and I never heard anyone talk about it. I was kind of let down. I guess that's the literary part of the thriller, because I was expecting it to be really like high stakes and like super like detailed in the way it was like thrilling. Like, kind of, I think it's because majority of the thrillers I've read are Frida McFadden. She kind of gets like straight to the point in the sense that the whole book kind of puts you on edge and stuff. And there's a lot of scary details throughout it, but this, yeah, I think there's a literary aspect of it, which makes sense why it's a literary thriller, because it wasn't so much about the actual thing, it was more about backstory. But basically, 2 twin sisters, Helen and Allie. Helen is like the leader, she's the goody two-shoes, and Allie has always been the naughty child and she's always gotten into trouble. Now one day they're playing together, they're 7 years old I believe, or really young, and they decide to switch places just for a few hours, just for that day. Then they go home and things transpire where they can't switch back straight away without like getting in trouble, and then from then on out they never switch places, and I'm talking never. Like, they go into adulthood still as each other, they get married as one of them gets married as the other sister, like the whole time they never switch places. until the very end of the book. That's when people find out that they're not who they've said they were. So the whole time it gives you this really kind of eerie, uncomfortable feeling. I'm not gonna lie, it was quite spooky, especially the beginning with the whole, the goody two shoes Helen wanted to switch back to herself, and she didn't want to be the naughty Ellie, but Ellie refused. And like, it was just such an eerie feeling, like thinking about like twins in the real world, like if they actually did that. And I would say Helen went through so much, it was actually like, I don't have words, it was so disturbing. But yeah, the literary aspect was definitely like, I felt like a lot of the time this is where it let me down. There's so many points in their backstory I just found so irrelevant. And yeah, because it went from the past and present time, and yeah, a lot of the backstory I just found unnecessary. So that did let me down. I think it was purely a thriller. It would have been way better. Literary thriller. It could also be because I've never read a literary thriller. Didn't know that was a thing, but nonetheless, 3-star. I read this in my readathon, and that is Marley and Me, which I rated a 3.75. Obviously, if you haven't heard of Marley and Me, like, come on, you're living under a rock. I know a lot of people in my life haven't watched it purely because of how sad it is, and you know, sometimes you just don't want to watch those movies sometimes. I have watched it. Heartbreaking. Such a sad movie. Probably one of the saddest movies ever, because I just have such a deep attachment to animals, especially dogs, obviously, because they're literally man's best friend. And the thought of that happening to my dog is just really sad. Anyway, nonetheless, I wanted to read this purely to see if it would like match up in the emotional way as the movie. I just found this more beautiful than the movie, to be honest. I felt like the movie was more focused on how sad it was, whereas this was focused on the beauty of having a dog. And like, I feel like the movie was that too, but obviously it gets outweighed by how emotional it was at the end. But nonetheless, this is about a couple, John and Jenny, who like were young and in love, and they felt like they had everything going for them, and they decided to get a dog, which is Marley, who is a Labrador Retriever. Very big Labrador Retriever. And yeah, he ends up being like 44 kilos. Huge Labrador Retriever. Crazy, but in like the best way. He's very naughty, but like crazy, and he just would always keep them on their toes. But it shows them developing such a strong relationship with him. For example, it takes you through John and Jenny's life, and like having kids and getting married, and just takes you through it all. And there's a part in the book where she actually has a miscarriage, which is obviously very sad. And immediately Marley's like hugging her, and he knew, and he's like licking her, and it just is there's like no kind of bond like there is between a dog and a human. And I truly believe that, because, and I think about my dog, when I cry, my dog licks my tears. I know people think that's weird, but I cry a lot, so he's got a lot of tears to lick up. It just takes you through their journey as a family with this dog. And this dog is there for everything. Like, literally anything you think of, he's there for. And when they have kids, he's there. And that's unfortunately how the story ends, with Marley passing. I think it's just from old age. I think he just gets, old, and he lived, I'm not gonna lie, he lived a very long and beautiful life. So this book was just really beautiful. It was really beautiful. I don't think 3.75 is a bad rating. It's only a 4. I loved it. I think this is sad, but I think if my dog passed, if I had a dog that passed like recently and I read this, it would be a lot sadder, because you're like kind of connecting through it that way. But I haven't had, obviously I've had family dogs die, but I haven't had a personal dog of mine die. So I think if you have this book, you'd really connect with. But 3.75. Next book was again in my 24-hour readathon, and that is Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon, which I rated a 3-star. This is completely my fault, without a doubt, because I researched, because originally I bought this cover because obviously it's gorgeous, but I did research, and I'm pretty sure this is a prequel, So you could read this before you read the series. I think this is a series. Or you could read this after the other series. I know for a fact a lot of people read this after reading the books, which now then looking back on it, I definitely should have done, because this book was kind of confusing. I'm not even gonna lie, it's gonna be really hard for me to explain it because one, I was nearing the end of my 24-hour readathon, so I was so exhausted. And secondly, if I read the initial books in this series first, it would have made a lot more sense. I'm not even going to try and explain it because I know if I try and explain it, it's just not going to make sense. But it is a fantasy. But even if I knew what was going on, I still think I would have been confused. Because it was just not an easy fantasy book to follow. And I know a lot of the time fantasy books are really confusing to understand and stuff. But I hadn't read a fantasy book like that in so long, which is really unfortunate because this is a really short book. It's only just over 200 pages. But I'm not even going to try and explain it. I'm going to put it, it would have been on the screen what this book's about, because it's just not going to make sense if I explain it, and I'd rather just put it on the screen. The next book is, again, no stranger to anyone, and if it is, well, I know a lot of people in my family haven't watched these movies, but I love them, and that is The Maze Runner by James Dashner, which I rated a 4.75. I love anything like dystopian, end of the world, like, I don't know, those kind of vibes, like Maze Runner, Divergent, like tsunami movies, like any kind of catastrophic movies like that. I love them. That's my jam. Like, I love those kind of movies, and they're also some of my favorite kinds of books. If you don't know what The Maze Runner is, Thomas wakes up in a lift. He wakes up in this lift that's come from underground, and he doesn't remember his name, and he doesn't remember anything about him, and then he's surrounded by strangers. That's how the movie begins. That's how the book begins. And in this place, which they call the Glade, is a maze. So think of like a box. They're in this box, living in this box as a group of teenage boys. And out of this box, through walls that close, is a maze. But the maze changes every single night. So they don't know how to get out of this maze. They have runners that run through this maze daily to try and discover a way out. No one's ever found a way out. And also, if you get stuck in this maze, you will die from these creatures that look freaking terrifying. I can't remember what the creatures are called. I'm gonna have to put it on the screen. I'll put a picture on the screen because in the movie they're kind of scary. But Thomas is basically their last hope, because after he arrives, a few days later, a girl comes up in the lift. Now, there's no girls in this glade. It's only men. So a girl comes up and it basically has a letter saying she's like the last one ever. So basically, if they don't find a way out of this maze, they won't get any they won't get any water or resources supplied to them through the lift again. So they have to find a way out, and truly, Thomas is the last hope. And then he starts remembering things from how he got there. And yeah, he's the main character in this world because he's got more of a connection to the glade and the maze than anyone knows, and even he knows. But yeah, they eventually find a way through the maze and escape. And yeah, that's what the other books continue the storyline forward in. I went into it thinking it'd be a 5-star without a doubt. And it's the same in the movie. It's the same in the movie. I hate the girl. I hate her so much. She's so annoying and I just can't get past it. And unfortunately, sometimes that can mean the difference between a 5-star and a 4.75. But nonetheless, 4.75, amazing book. And I'm very excited to read the next one. Then I read a book that was picked by my mum, because once again, I want to read more classics, childhood books. And yeah, I know some people will be like, oh, you're reading a lot of YA and like not even like genuinely children classics. But I don't care. Like, I want to read what I want to read. And sometimes those kind of books are great in between books. And that is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, which I rated a 3.25 star. It's literally under 200 pages. Such an easy read, a classic children's book. I know my mum loved it, my grandpa loved it, apparently. Like, she saw it, she got it from an op shop, even better. Such a cute book. 3.25, definitely would read this to my children one day, without a doubt. Such a good children's book. Yeah, I just don't think I was a demographic for it, obviously, because it's a children's classic. It's basically just about a great adventure between a mole who makes friends with all these riverside creatures, a water rat, a badger, and a toad. Now, not gonna lie, it goes on all these different adventures between these animals along this riverside, and it definitely has a deeper meaning to it. But Toad, so freaking annoying, so annoying. And I'm not gonna lie, if you're a kid listening to that book, you'd probably look at Toad and love him because he is quite a nuisance, not gonna lie. And he does like all the naughty things. So if you're a kid reading it, you'd probably love Toad, but he was really freaking annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, it's just really about friendship and growing together and going and learning from your mistakes and learning together. And I feel like it has a lot of deeper messages behind it. But 3.25, nice easy read, good filler book, and I just wanted to read it because my mom got it for me, obviously. You will notice a pattern in this wrap up. I did read a lot of children classics and more YA books, but sometimes you need that in a month. The next book I read was Tinkerbell, An Enchanter's Tale, which I rated a 4.5. I've definitely watched Tinkerbell as a child and early teens and stuff. I definitely would have watched it. Do I remember it fully? No, because I feel like there's just so many different Tinkerbell movies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there is. This one's actually about how the Lost Boys got to Neverland. I would say that's the main point of the story. But this one is actually about Tinkerbell being friends with a different kind of crowd. She's friends with an anxious pirate, an apathetic mermaid, an enthusiastic shapeshifter, and the adventurous Tiger Lily. And it's about them discovering strange and disturbing occurrences throughout the island that they live on. And it's like the island's dying and they don't know how to stop it. And these other pirates, not her friend, is like kind of the reason that the island's dying. They need to figure out how to save the island. And she ends up in the human world where she discovers these boys that are very ill and in hospital. She puts fairy dust on them and she goes, I know how to save all these people. And they end up in Neverland. Yeah, Neverland. And that's how the Lost Boys got to Neverland. And Peter becomes Peter Pan, I believe, eventually, but he's obviously not. Peter is amongst the Lost Boys, and it's literally just how the Lost Boys got to Neverland and Tinkerbell and her friends saving this place. The reason I didn't rate it a 5, I know why, because this is so silly again, but I did read in the reviews, people say the same thing as me. It sat kind of uncomfortably with me that Tinkerbell is a fairy. She's tiny, okay? When she gets to this human world, she meets a boy called James, I believe. And they kind of form a connection and they like each other, and nothing ever actually romantically happens. I mean, like a kiss or anything, but they're like in love with one another. And it was kind of giving the bee and the human in the Bee movie. Not gonna lie. So that's the only reason. That just didn't sit. It didn't really bother me that much, but at certain points it was like, oh, it's a bit weird. I don't think it was too children-esque. Like, I don't really even care, to be honest. I liked it, and I'm gonna continue reading books like this if I choose to. So I rated this a 4.5. The next book I read, I got alongside Tinkerbell, and that is The Magic Faraway Tree, the story of the film by Enid Blyton, which obviously I rated a 5-star. So I knew I was going to go to the movies to see this movie with my grandma and my mom and like my sisters. So I wanted to remember what it was about fully, because as children we watched it, but I didn't like I knew the gist of it, but I didn't really remember it too well, so I wanted to read it. I did discover that this isn't obviously the original. I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure the original is about the father from this. I'm pretty sure the original is about him when he's a child and him finding the magic faraway tree. But in this, it follows his 3 children, mainly Fran, which is his youngest daughter. Basically, this family moves to this countryside and Fran is she's really quiet and she's not talking to anyone and they don't really know what it is. And the other 2 just want internet and to be back in the city and they're bored and everything. But Fran believes in magic and she wants to discover this magical world, and she gets a letter from a fairy known as Silky, and in this letter it basically says, come to this tree through the woods that you're not meant to go through. Come to this tree and say, I believe in magic 3 times. When she does that, she goes up this tree and it's obviously magical, and she meets the other people that are there, Moonface, the Saucepan Man, and other people like Mr. What's his name, and like all these other characters. And every single day the top of the tree changes worlds. So one day it's the land of goodies, one day it's the land of birthdays, one day it's like just all these different worlds at the top of this tree. And soon herself and her siblings go up this tree. And yeah, that's literally all it is. It's quite a simple book to follow, obviously. And not only did the book make me feel like a child again, but so did the movie. And then you discover that, yes, the father used to go to this tree as well, and he was really close with Moonface. And the whole time they're like, all these people like Moonface and Silky and the Saucepan Man are like, children one day just forget about you and they don't believe in magic anymore. And then Fran is like, no, my dad believes in magic. My dad's always believed in magic. And that's how they discover that the dad is the little boy that used to come up this tree. And it really is just, it makes me just feel good. It just made me feel good reading this, watching the movie. Just everything about this makes me feel good because I believe in magic. I love magic. It's just something so nostalgic about just magic in general, about fairies and about all these mythical kind of creatures, and I just love that, and it just makes you feel whimsical, doesn't it? And if people hate on you for like these kind of things, like it's really their loss, because I just love anything whimsical, and this book just made me feel good, and it did make me smile a lot, made me think about my younger self, and it just felt very nostalgic, and I loved it. And then Mum gave me all the Enid Blyton books, so maybe I can read the original. Who knows? Next book I don't actually have on me because Bodhi's reading it currently, but that was our book club read for the month, and that is The Crash by Frida McFadden, which was my book club pick for the month. I can't remember, I'm gonna have to put it on the screen what I actually rated it, because I rated it something and I changed it, but I can't remember which one I changed it. It was either a 3.25 or a 3.5. I have heard that this is not one of her best books. Like, I've heard a lot of people say this is not as good as others, and I completely get it. But like, there's just something so easy about a Frida McFadden book. Like, they're just so easy to read, which in turn makes me want to rate it higher because it was like so easy to follow and you just enraptured in the storyline and everything about it. A girl is on the way to see her brother and she's pregnant, and she gets like caught in like a snowstorm, and in turn she crashes her car, and then she gets picked up by this big, it's like, he's like described as like quite like big and scary looking, and she's quite intimidated by him. She gets picked up by him and taken to his house, which is amongst like the woods, and there's only like one other house next to it. There he has his wife and him, but as soon as she gets there, she gets taken down into the attic. But in the attic, it just is described as really creepily, not gonna lie. It's like a hospital bed, and it's just no windows, nothing like that really, because that's where the owner's wife's mother was when she was ill. But she gets put down there because she can't go to the hospital yet because of the snowstorm. So they put her down there to rest her foot or leg, whatever it was, and to recover. But eventually it doesn't go that way, obviously, and the husband is she believes the husband is the one that's holding her captive and is abusing the wife, and she isn't allowed to leave because of the husband. I'm going to spoil it because it's kind of hard to explain this book if you don't spoil it, and honestly, out of all Freida McFadden's books, I wouldn't recommend reading this one anyway, so do with that what you will. But obviously, you kind of know Freida McFadden books are so easy a lot of the time to guess who the actual villain in the story is. And it was so obvious from the get-go that the husband wasn't the actual villain, because she was making a point constantly to point out that he was tall and scary looking and made her uncomfortable, and she wouldn't let him downstairs. She'd only let the wife, and the wife was being abused by him and all these things. But in actuality, the wife was obviously the one, and it's because she noticed that the girl was pregnant and she wanted a baby because she couldn't fall pregnant. So that's all I'll say, but that's the whole reason she was being held captive, because the wife wanted the baby. Now, I did see people say this too. How the girl got out of this attic, how she got out was the dumbest thing ever. Like, it was so easy for her to get out. It's just stupid at that point. There was other characters that you find out later that had a part in her car crash, which probably was one of the more interesting parts of the plot. But other than that, yeah. Look, I've rated it even that high because, like I said, Freida McFadden books are just really easy to immerse yourself in and just read. But if I was to recommend any of them, it definitely wouldn't be that one. Now, the final book I read in the month of April was Tuesdays with Morrie, which actually I rated a 6-star. I loved this book. I have seen so many book creators that I watch, or just random videos pop up or anything like that, talk about Tuesdays with Morrie, and it just sounded like such a wholesome book to read, to really delve deeper into like life's purpose and just think more about relationships and yourself and just everything like that. The author of this is Mitch Albom, and it's actually about his relationship with his college professor, Morrie Schwartz, which was his college professor nearly 20 years ago. Now, at the beginning, it's saying how Mitch graduated and he's talking to Morrie and he's like, I will definitely keep in contact with you. And then it kind of moves forward and it's been nearly 20 years. He hasn't kept in contact. He's kind of been distracted by work, and he's just, from the get-go, you can tell he just has prioritized work and he hasn't really cared about much else. And then one day he sees Morrie on the TV talking about his diagnosis with ALS and he's dying from it. So from then on out, Mitch reaches out to Morrie and wants to reconnect with him. So then they meet every Tuesday to just talk about a different topic every day. So he goes to his house, talks to Morrie every Tuesday, which is hence why it's called Tuesdays with Morrie, and Morrie just talks literally about anything that Mitch has questions about. It just emphasizes the importance of having a teacher in your life, no matter what kind of teacher, like a teacher at school, a grandparent that could teach you things, a parent, like just a teacher in any way. That's what this is kind of about, like a mentor, I'd say. Their rekindled relationship turned into one final class, Lessons in How to Live. So each chapter was about like a different, I guess, lesson. I have never read such beautiful quotes, and so many quotes have just really resonated with me in the way I would never have been able to put them into words, but they somehow did that for me. But I'll read you some of the quotes now. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they're chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. The most important thing in life is to learn how to give out love and to let it come in. Let it come in. We don't deserve love. We think if we let it in, we'll become too soft. Love is the only rational act. Sometimes you cannot believe what you see. You have to believe what you feel. And if you are ever going to have other people trust you, you must feel that you can trust them too. This is like probably the number one quote I've seen a lot of people use from this book. And it says, once you learn how to die, you learn how to live. There is no foundation, no secure ground upon which people may stand today if it isn't the family. If you don't have the support and love and caring and concern that you get from a family, you don't have much at all. Love is so supremely important. Love each other or perish. Without love, we are birds with broken wings. We all yearn in some way to return to those days when we were completely taken care of. Unconditional love, unconditional attention. This is probably one of my favourites, and I know Brody loved this one too. As you grow, you learn more. If you stayed at 22, you'd always be as ignorant as you were at 22. Aging is not just decay, you know, it's growth. It's more than the negative that you're going to die, it's also the positive that you understand you're going to die and that you live a better life because of it. Love is how you stay alive even after you are gone. This one is definitely my favourite. As long as we can love each other and remember the feeling of love we had, we can die without ever really going away. All the love you created is still there, all the memories are still there. You live on in the hearts of everyone you have touched and nurtured while you were here. Death ends a life, not a relationship. And there is no such thing as too late in life. Honestly, if I could get everyone to read this book, I would. 6 star for me. I haven't stopped thinking about this since the day I read it. It's such a short book. It's under 200 pages again. Such a short book. And it just has like every single lesson he was talking about. I was like, wow, okay. Call me out. Yeah, call me out. Nice. Just if you need a book to make you realize what you have, feel good about what you have, and also reconnect with probably things you've detached yourself from. Like, for example, in this book, at the beginning, Mitch is only really focused on work, and then throughout the book, he's kind of discovering that a career and work isn't as important as building connections with his loved ones and family members and friends and everything like that. Hence why he's doing this with Maury. But I love this book. 6 star for me, and first 6 star of 2026. So that is the end of my April wrap up of my 10 books this month. I actually, guys, listen here now, I've read every single book on my April TBR. That's never happened. I usually have probably like 2 or 3 left. So that is, I'm very proud of myself. Look, super proud. And a lot of those books actually have been on my cart for some time, or like I knew I just wouldn't pick them up anytime soon. So these are all the books I read in April, and now we get to pick my May TBR, and I'm very, very excited because I've got some amazing books I would really love to read. So I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that I get to them. Let's pick my May TBR. So once again, I'm going to pick 6 books for the month, and I'll have a book club read, but I'm still gonna pick 6. So I'll pick 3 from this, just the books, and then 3 props. So let's start with the books. I have so many books I want to read. So many. So off the bat, what I really want to read, so many. Twilight, 11/22/63, Maestra, which is like a thriller, Hunger, which is the second book in the Gorn series. Just so many books I really want to get to, but I don't think I will, but who knows? This has not been updated, so freaking who knows what I'll pick. Okay, the year the maps changed. Where did I put that? This is actually set in Sorrento, which is obviously like 15 minutes down the road. I don't really know what this is about. Bodhi just picked it for me because it was set in Sorrento, so it has been on my cart for quite some time. So I'm feeling if I don't get to it this month, I should just not have it on my cart, because it's not really a book I look at and go, oh, I really want to read that. But nonetheless, this is the first book on my May TBR. The Year the Maps Changed by Danny L. Binks. Diabound. Okay. Diabound by Sable Sorensen. All I know is this is about wolves. I haven't read a fantasy about wolves. This is freaking huge, I'm not gonna lie. It's only 600 pages. It's not that big. I just read a lot of shorter books last month. But all I know, it's about wolves, fantasy. I've heard amazing things about this, so I'm very excited to read it. So this is the second book on my May TBR, Diabound by Sable Sorensen. Final one of these is, okay, The Silence of the Lambs. See, okay, like I said, I wanted to read more classics, more of these kind of books that I've heard many, many different things about. Look, I don't really, what is The Silence of the Lambs about? I actually have no idea, so a killer. So it's definitely up my alley, so I'm intrigued to read it, and I have wanted to read it, so it should be very interesting. This is the third book on my May TBR, The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. And it's it's a bit of a shorter book too, which will be nice. First prompt, I need to update this. A bestseller, guys. I'm gonna look it up, but I'm pretty sure 11/22/63 is a bestseller. Upon its release in November 2011, it immediately became a #1 bestseller and remained on the New York Times bestseller list for 16 weeks. It's apparently one of Stephen King's best books, so I'm definitely picking 11/22/63. All I know about this book is it's about the assassination of President Kennedy, but a man goes back in time to like stop it. That's the only gist of it I know, but I've only heard amazing things about this, and it's probably one of his books that I've wanted to read for the longest time and the most, so I'm very, very excited. So this is the fourth book on my May TBR, 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I can't wait to talk to you about this book. Fifth prompt, an easy read. Okay, I have lots of options for this because I have a lot of shorter books. So right off the bat, I could pick an Enid Blyton book because they're children's books, I guess. The Secret Island by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This one could be super easy. I just don't think I'm interested in that right now. I think I'm going to pick an Enid Blyton book or The Secret Garden. But we're really just going off easiness. I think I'll pick an Enid Blyton book. So I have all these options and they're super short. So we have The Enchanted Wood, The Folk of the Faraway Tree, The Adventures of the Wishing Chair, More Wishing Chair Stories, The Wishing Chair Again, and The Magic Faraway Tree. Honestly, out of these, I'm going to pick The Adventures of the Wishing Chair because, wow, this is going to be a really easy read. It's under 200 pages. This is going to be the fifth book of my TBR for an easy read, and that is The Adventures of the Wishing Chair by Enid Blyton. Yes, it's a children's book, but it's a children's classic, so very excited to read. It's such an easy read. Final prompt. A 2-word title. Okay, 2-word title. I Have Never Flinched by Stephen King. I Have Needful Things by Stephen King. I have Taming 7, which I guess is a 2-word title. Jasper Jones. Honestly, I'm not ready for the next Chloe Walsh book yet, I know. And I don't really want to read 2 Stephen King books in a month. And this does sound super interesting. I really want to read it. And this is Vanishing Girls, which I believe is a thriller mystery. And I just think it's about 2 girls that go missing. Or multiple people that go missing. It sounds really interesting. So for a 2-word title, I'm going to pick Vanishing Girls by Lauren Oliver. So these are the 6 books on my May TBR. I'm super excited, very intrigued about a lot of these books. I've wanted to read so many of these books for so long, and I know I'm going to love probably a majority of these, to be completely honest. So I'm really excited and can't wait to talk to you next month about what I read in May. So thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you again soon for a brand new video. Goodbye.